Namaste. Namaste to all from Disha Bharat. Today, we have joined here and we are coming live to celebrate India's legacy, to speak about the reasons behind India's independence, the Swa in the struggle for independence. On behalf of Disha Bharat, I welcome all our audience. I welcome our speaker for the day, Nandakumar ji, and Venugopal ji, and everyone who have joined us online this evening. Disha Bharat conducts activity-based personality development workshops. Through these workshops, Disha Bharat tries to bring out the pride and the strong sense of belongingness to our country and culture. Swami Vivekananda was India condensed, who awakened the spirit of Bharatiya and inspired generations to work for Bharat Mata. To bring this message of Swami Vivekananda to today's youth, we at Disha Bharat organize our annual flagship program to celebrate Swami Vivekananda's birthday and anniversary as Swami Vivekananda Jayanti. During this event, competitions are organized for students. We also undertake a student outreach program where our volunteers go to schools and colleges to educate the students on the life and legacy of Swami Vivekananda. On that note, isn't it great that we are entering the 75th year of our Indian independence? On this special occasion, Disha has organized a series of programs, and today we are on the 4th day of My Bharat campaign. And we welcome you all on behalf of Disha Bharat. I welcome you all to today's program where we have Nandakumar ji who will be speaking to us on Swa, that is self, and the self struggle in India's independence. And to introduce the speaker, I would like to welcome Shri T.V. Venugopal ji, a real estate developer, well-wisher, and a volunteer with Disha Bharat. Over to you, Venugopal ji.
Thank you. Namaskaram to all. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker, Shri J. Nandakumar ji. Shri Nandakumar ji serves as the All India Coordinator or the Akhila Bharatiya Samyojak of Prajna Pravaha, an umbrella organization of think tanks of the nation. He is truly a multifaceted personality, an accomplished author, an eminent intellectual, a powerful orator, a gifted poet, analyst, and an able organization builder. He was born in the year 1965 at Pandalam, which belongs to the Pattanamthitta district of Kerala. Shri Nandakumar ji completed his studies in automobile engineering, and at an age of 20, he became the Pracharak of the RSS. From his early years onwards, he has held numerous responsibilities such as Kerala Pranta Saha Baudhika Pramukh, Saha Pranta Pracharak of Kerala, Kshetriya Baudhik Pramukh of Dakshina Kshetra. From March 2012 to 2017, he served as the Akhila Bharatiya Saha Prachara Pramukh, looking after the media and communication wing of the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangha. He was the editor of Kesari, one of the most popular weeklies in Malayalam for a long time. And as a distinguished author, he has authored several books in Malayalam and English, including Savarkar, a biography, Hindutva for Changing Times, Swaraj 75, Bharat's Struggle for Selfhood in English. We heartily welcome Shri Nandakumar ji, a tech-savvy pracharak and a true son of Bharata Mata who has dedicated his life in the service of this nation. Over to you, Nandakumar ji.
Namaskar. Thank you, Manvita ji. Thank you, Venugopal ji, and all distinguished guests, elders, and also young Karyakartas of Disha Bharat. I would like to congratulate Team Disha Bharat for conducting these type of meaningful programs, so that the real content of this great nation, the spirit of this great nation is being given to, percolated to the minds of young generation especially. I'm very much fortunate that last year also Team Disha Bharat has invited me to participate in this lecture series. This time also, I feel it is a great privilege to be with especially youngsters and nation first thinkers. Thank you, everybody. Today we are discussing about the Swaraj 75. You all know the fact that Bharat has will enter into the 75th year of our independence on August 15th of 2021. Maybe a year long or maybe more time space pay. We are going to celebrate it in a great way, in a grand manner. Our Honorable Prime Minister has inaugurated a function in which a yatra, Dandi Yatra, has been symbolically enacted there. And also in that particular program, he has placed before the nation as well as the whole world that what is the concept behind celebrating the 75th year of Bharat's independence. 1 year back, when we were celebrating the 100th year of Sardar Patel, the Iron Man of Bharat, Honorable Prime Minister has participated in that program before the huge statue of Sardar Patel in Gujarat. One of the programs was actually the conference of the young IAS probationers. In that program, he made a significant statement in which he had welcomed all the young probationers of Indian Administrative Service, those young brothers and sisters, and he welcomed them with these words that you are going to enter into the civil service as full-fledged officers when we are going to celebrate the 75th year of our independence. That means by 2021, they will be full-fledged officers. And he didn't stop there. He was saying that when we will celebrate the 100th year of our independence in 2047, you people are going to be you are going to become the key figures and will be in the key post, and those posts and those positions are going to decide through which way Bharat has to progress. So he has connected it with the 100th year celebration also. So he is a visionary. He sees through the time and he is placing before us a great vision and also mission. Today we have to discuss about the achievements, of course, what we have achieved through this in these 75 years of independence. Also, what is our vision forward for the coming 25 years. There will be very in-depth discussions about what we have achieved and also about what we want to achieve in the coming future. But along with that, it is a duty of every Indian citizen to think about the great landmark independence movement which our forefathers led. They laid their lives for the freedom which we are enjoying now. Yes, in this air and surroundings, in this air which we are breathing, the blood and sweat and of course tears of those great forefathers are being, it is present in that air, in the air which we are breathing. So they have dedicated the whole life. They have surrendered their whole life for our independence. So it's our duty. That's why I said that it is our divine duty to think about them and also remember about them all. All means everyone. You know the fact that the so-called mainstream history is remembering only some of the leaders, the national level leaders or international level leaders, as we are giving them such names. But there are more and more hundreds and thousands of great leaders whose name we are not aware of. They are the unsung heroes and heroines. There are unsung, undescribed incidents which influence our Indian independence struggle. And also there are major landmark turning points in our history. And also there are so many unsung, undescribed organizations and institutions which dedicated their whole organizational work for the independence of our nation. So it is our responsibility to remember those unsung heroes, unsung heroines, unsung incidents, unsung organizations. Why I'm saying this? See, we have got a mainstream history. The other day I have got an opportunity to hear your program in which Sandeep Balakrishnan was speaking. He was also explaining about those great leaders who dedicated their life for this nation, but we are not worship or remembering them, rather remembering them. Celebrations will be there and it will be huge. There is no doubt about that. We are all experts in organizing events. But what must be the real narrative of that great celebration? When we are celebrating in and out of Bharat, this great moment, the true, real nationalist narrative is to be placed before the public. That is the need of the hour. I have already said that it was a landmark moment. Why I am saying that Bharat's independence struggle was a landmark moment? There is no parallel in the whole history of the whole world or any independence struggle happened in any of the nations having these features and specialities. First and foremost thing is that the time span of this great independence struggle. Now we are going to celebrate the independence from which we have attained freedom from colonial powers, forces. Right from the moment when these colonial forces set foot in our nation, on our shores, we have started the resistance. But the mainstream history narrative is continuously saying that our independence struggle was not that long. It hasn't got that long history. Some of them are saying, I heard it many a times, especially in the evening time debates, whenever any nationalist organizations representatives tell anything about patriotism, it is being countered by some particular political organization by saying, where were you? We have attained freedom. We fought for the freedom. So they are saying, in a way, that the independence struggle was started in 1885. What is the significance and importance of indeed 1885? You all are aware about the fact that in 1885, one political organization has been floated by a British man. So such people are still thinking, they are still living in that fool's paradise that this great nation's independence movement has started with the inception of that party, that political party. That's false. Some are saying, okay, let us go 28 years back. That means they are saying it was started in 1857. There is a narrative regarding that we have our first war of independence was in 1857. I don't think that even Veera Savarkar, who wrote that great book about that 1857, has ever mentioned that it was the first independence war. No. You can see the cover page of that particular book in which Veera Savarkar has mentioned only 1857, Indian War of Independence. Of course, it was the first, in a way, it has got some first positions. What all were the positions? It was a nationwide movement at a particular given period. It was a planned movement in that manner. So we can say that in that way, it may be first. But actually, the fire has begun. The spirit of the nation has set ablaze right from the moment these colonial forces set foot in Bharat. You know, the Portuguese was the first force which entered into Bharat in Calicut in 1498 in Kapad beach. Samurin was the ruler of the Hindu ruler of Malabar at that point of time. Of course, following the customary practices and tradition and values of this great nation and this great culture, Samorin has welcomed them. Atiti Devo Bhava. With this motto in mind, this great mantra in mind, the Hindu Raja welcomed them. But in due course, he came to know that the main intention of this colonial advent was not mere trade. There is a narrative which has been set by those people. They are saying that these colonialists came here, no matter whether they were Portugal or Dutch or France or English, or in between some minor colonial forces like Sweden or Hungary. They all entered into Bharat for mere harmless trade. Trade is necessary for a nation to remain intact economically. That adana prada, give and take, it is necessary. There is no wrong in that. But if you are analyzing properly the situation in those colonial forces places, I mean Portuguese or French or Netherlands or Britain or Sweden at that point of time, what was the real intention of their attack or their advent? It was not mere trade. Yes, trade was a side business for them. The main business was something else. You may be knowing, just before Columbus and Vasco da Gama began their expedition, there was a great treaty made in between Spain and Portugal. Those Christian forces, under the presidency or chairmanship of Pope, in the city of Tordesillas in Spain. What was the purpose? What was the role of a Christian religious leader in those nations' conference? It was religious. It was for proselytization. It was to Christianize the whole world. That's why Pope in that meeting made a treaty, Tordesillas Treaty, in which it has been clearly mentioned that Spain can go to the western half of the whole world and globe can be taken by them, as if it was just hereditary property. He has given half of globe to Spain and half of globe to Portugal. So the main purpose of their advent was a religious proselytization and nothing else. Along with that, they need money. They knew very well that Bharat was a Sone ki chidiya. It was a golden bird. So here they can make money. So they started their pepper politics along with the cross politics. The religion, there is a purpose. That purpose was cross purpose. Cross purpose, I would like to say. They want to place cross over Bharat. So that was the purpose. So this thing is nowhere in the discussion. What were the real purposes of this colonial advent? But when our Hindu Rajas came to know that they have got some intention which was hidden behind this trade and business, they started retaliation, and that retaliation, in a way, in many places, completely routed out Portugal from Kerala's borders. Kodungalur War, Calicut War. There are so many such incidents which are not being discussed properly in our nation, in our history books. The point is, right from the moment of this colonialist advent, we have started our retaliation. So anti-colonial independence struggle has started in the end of 15th century itself, or in the beginning of the 16th century itself. So we have got a long history of anti-colonial movement. That is the first factor which I have to mention to you. When we are admitting that fact, when you are accepting that fact, we have to go deep into the leaders and heroes and heroines and incidents which were worth remembering when we are celebrating this 75th year of Indian independence. Another major point which we are discussing when we are studying the mainstream history books is that Bharat's independence struggle is not a pan-Indian movement. It was a predominantly North Indian, urban-based, English-educated movement, people's movement. That's the way in which it is being, they are interpreting. But what was the fact? When you are analyzing all the history in depth and studying the parallel history which has been ignored by these mainstream historians, I would like to call them historians, not historians. That parallel history, when we are going deep into that, we will get the real knowledge about our independence struggle, that Bharat's independence struggle has happened right from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, right from Sialkot, Lahore, Karachi to Dhaka and everywhere. The whole Bharat, it was fought against the colonial invaders. So it was really a pan-Indian movement. Pan-Indian movement. I have mentioned about Kerala's response. There were responses from Karnataka. Sangoli Rayana has resisted this colonial attacks, invasions. Alluri Sitaramaya in Karnataka has resisted. Akamarani has resisted. The whole area, Sandal responses were there. So in that way, we are analyzing, it was a whole Bharat affair. It was not limited to North India or urban-based or even English-based, the so-called high class. Caste Hindus were the leaders. That is another narrative. These are all made by the English historians or Western historians. It has been shamelessly followed by our own historians. It was a Bharat movement. And another thing which I have mentioned now, that it was a high caste Hindus movement. That's also false. The longest resistance were led by the so-called tribals and so-called backward community leaders. What was actually Sannyasi rebellion? Who were the forces behind that Sannyasi rebellion, through which the Swaraj and the Subhasha movement has been strengthened? Who were the real forces behind the Santal movement? Tribals or Vanavasi Bandhu. And what about the Paika movement of Orissa, which went on to decades? It was one of the longest struggle against the British, keeping Puri's Jagannatha as their the flag symbol of the flag. They fought. Who are they? Almost the majority of them are from the so-called backward community. Bhil movement. In that way, that narrative is also completely wrong, that it was led by English-educated high-class Hindus. It was a pan-social, it was a societal movement, national movement. The major point which we are going to discuss today is, I would like to, as I have said already, that what is the narrative which is being there in the mainstream history about the reason or the inspiration of this independence struggle. They used to say that Bharat's independence struggle was inspired by political power. The old leaders who fought for Bharat's independence struggle were inspired by politics or political power. Is that correct? We have to analyze it also. See, I have already said that the situation there in those countries from where these invaders came, when they started their work here, they tried to attack through so many fronts. It was a multi-dimensional attack from their side. But our response was also multi-dimensional. Why their response was why their attacks were multi-dimensional? It was inspired by their religious belief system. But we have countered it with the selfhood of this great nation. You can say the soul of this great nation, swa of this great nation, or chiti of this great nation. Our independence struggle was inspired by selfhood, and in another way, I have tried to put it in my small book that it was a battle for selfhood. Right from the beginning, it was a struggle inspired by the Atma or self or soul or selfhood of this great nation. We can go deep into such many incidents, and also we have to discuss about it also. See, from Kerala, I would like to start. One of the greatest leaders of Kerala's independence struggle or Bharat's independence struggle happened in Kerala was Veluthambi Dalava. He was the Prime Minister of Travancore Raja. He started his historic fight against the Britishers by distributing a proclamation in the name Kundara Proclamation. In this small book, I have given the excerpts from that Kundara Proclamation also. I would like to quote it from the English translation of that Kundara Proclamation. One paragraph, I quote, "It is the nature of the English nation to get possession of countries by treacherous means, and should they obtain ascendancy in Travancore, they will put their guards in palaces, Sarkar buildings and fort gates, destroy the royal seal, make monopolies of salt and everything, measure up and assert to themselves absolute owners of wastelands, coconut trees, etc. And final word up, dekhiye, put up crosses and Christian flags on temples." There are a lot of sentences which was included in that particular proclamation, in which he has mentioned everything. He was saying this English foreign nation, if they were allowed to rule us, they will exploit us to the core. Right from salt to Kapoor, they will exploit us. Our wealth will be drained. In that way, Veluthambi Dalava was, in a way, 120, 30 years before Dadabhai Nauroji, who wrote about the wealth drain. Already Veluthambi Dalava said, what was his inspiration? Was saying the culture and the tradition and the customary practices of this great nation will be destroyed, and crosses and Christian flags will be placed over your temples. So the main inspiration inside Veluthambi Dalava was the culture and the swa content of this great nation. That we have to understand. People are saying that Veluthambi Dalava fought for political power. Was it so? It was no. He resigned his prime minister post, gave back all his sword, symbol of all powers to Maharaja, and became a common man and organized a great movement and distributed this proclamation and started his war. The same thing is about Tamil Nadu. You may be knowing about the Shivaganga resistance of Tamil Nadu against the Britishers. British people, with the help of the Arcot Nawab, Muslim leader, attacked Shivaganga. Shivaganga was ruled by Velu Nachiyar. At that point of time, 23-year-old young, beautiful Rani, and also a fighter to the core. The person who organized the women-only Fauj army to fight against Britishers. His, the whole Sainya was being led by two brothers, Martu brothers. Velu Nachiyar won in that great struggle. And later on, after Velu Nachiyar, this Martu brothers led the fight. Maruthu Pandyan and Chinna Maruthu. They also made a very great, interesting, and also a patriotic proclamation. In that proclamation, proclamation's name itself is very much significant. Its name is Jambu Deepa Proclamation. How come this thought in this so-called South Indian's mind, the so-called Dravidian's mind? Jambu Deepe, Bharata Khande, Bharata Varshe. That Sankalpa Sutra was there in these Maruthu brothers. So they gave the name, the whole bigger, greater cultural Bharat's name, Jambu Deepa, and the proclamation has been made and they fought against the Britishers. There are a lot of, excerpts are to be discussed. But I don't want to take much of the time, so I'm going to the next point. The very same thing, if you are analyzing Sangoli Rayana's fight, it was not just confined to the particular area where in which he lived. It was not even confined to the province. His thought, Veerapandya Kattabomma's thought, Jhansi Rani's thought. Jhansi Rani, when she was starting her fight, she wrote so many letters to the English officers. In some of the letters, she clearly mentioned that I am fighting to fulfill the dream of Sri Krishna, Gita principle. I am fighting to oust you out, no doubt about that. But if I am not successful in that fight, I will get the Swarga, Veera Swarga. And if I am successful, just Sri Krishna, just like Sri Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, I'll get my Rajya back. There's no doubt about that. So Jhansi Rani's inspiration was also like that. Santal, that war when they began, there also the clear mentioning about Asya to Himachala concept was there. When Bhil patriots were organized by Govinda Guru of Gujarat and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, it was also a soul-inspired or selfhood inspired or a battle for selfhood. Everywhere this pan-national concept, the civilizational content can be identified. So, but all these aspects which we have discussed now has been sidelined in our mainstream narrative. Some other stories are being put on our head. It was put on our head. Why it is happening? I think that in the last speech also, I have quoted one great novelist. It is relevant here more. So I am quoting why it is happening. The great Nigerian novelist Ben Okri, he was invited in the Jaipur Lit Fest. You know, the organizers of the Jaipur Lit Fest were thinking that this Booker Prize winner, a black novelist, a literary figure, maybe from their biradari or their family, he may talk something against this national spirit, culture and everything. But shockingly, he talked exactly the opposite thing. He said that in that Jaipur Lit Fest itself, Ben Okri said that the main inspiration for my writing is Mahabharata and Ramayana, like that. And when he came back to Delhi, he conducted a press conference in which he has repeated his great quotation about history. Let me quote. to poison a nation, poison its stories. A demoralized nation tells demoralized stories to itself. Beware of the storytellers who are not fully conscious of the importance of their gifts and who are responsible in the application of their art. They could unwittingly help along the psychic destruction of their people. Unquote. See what Benokria said? Same thing has happened in their land, Africa, Nigeria, and everywhere. Wherever these colonial Western forces came, they made a particular group to tell the story. Story means history. Through history telling or storytelling, they have poisoned their nation. So, nation ko poison karna hai to, if you want to poison a nation, you have to poison the story or history first of all. Through that, the stories will be demoralized. So such a nation start telling those demoralized stories to itself. That means to nation. So Benokri is saying that beware of such historians or storytellers who are not fully conscious about their importance of their gifts. उनकी सिद्धियों के बारे में जानकारी नहीं है उनको, वो गलत ढंग से उपयोग करते हैं. And again he is saying they are irresponsible in the application of their art. History को ठीक तरह से उपयोग करने का दायित्व बोध नहीं है. And what will happen at the end of the day? Poisoning the story, poisoning the nation, demoralized the nation, starting telling the demoralized history to its generation and to itself, through which at the end of the day, the whole nation will face a psychic destruction. Psychic destruction. Manasik patan, manasik vinash ho jayega. So this is the greatest danger which our people are facing now through these false histories. The same thing has been said in a mild way by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda in a speech, especially specifically before young students and historians, he was talking about our history written by colonial masters, what all danger which we are facing through that. He said, let me quote, the histories of our country written by English and other Western writers cannot but be weakening of to our minds. For they talk only of our downfall. How can foreigners who understand very little of our manners and customs or religion and philosophy write faithful and unbiased histories of India? Naturally, many false notions and wrong inferences have found their way to them. See, the history of Bharat has been written by the English and other Western historians. And of course, we can very well add that those shameless people who aped, duplicated those Western history written by those people. It is still continuing. Why they wrote those false stories? Why they tried to poison our stories? Because they wrote only about the downfall and shortcomings of Bharat. He was asking, how can foreigners who are not aware about the great nation's tradition, culture, customs, religion, and philosophy write our history? Swabhavik roop mein, naturally, many false notions and wrong inferences have found their way to them, through which only we are still learning, teaching and learning the Adi Dravidavada. The same thing which we are teaching and learning, that those white men who came here helped us to improve. See, there is a narration that when these people came here for trade, they witnessed that the society of Bharat was in such a pathetic condition that they were fighting each other. They were not aware about what you say clothes. They were just headhunters. They were not aware about the civilizational practices. They were not forward-looking people. They were not law-abiding people. They were against peace. So compassion came to their mind. Karunai. English और Dutch और Portuguese लोगों के मन में. So they set aside their trade ambition for some time and they started civilizing us. They started giving education to us. So in the way, they taught us that Bharat is a nation state also. Through their English education and through their experiences, they taught us that Bharat is one. And in a way, they are saying not only the development which we have attained over the contribution of English or the Western colonialists, the very concept of this great nation also came to us through them. In a way, without saying they are trying to inculcate that spirit inside us, that idea inside us, thus the independence struggle was also a contribution of the colonialists. In that way, they are saying these are the false notions which we are still continuing remembering or reminding. This wrong inferences has to be removed. That's why Swami Vivekananda has gave us a great duty. Let me quote that also. He says, now it is for us to strike out an independent path of historical research for ourselves, to study the Vedas and Puranas and the ancient annals of India, and from this makes it our life sadhana to write accurate, sympathetic, and soul-inspiring histories of the land. It is for the true Indians to write history. Why he said so? We are aware about our customs. We are aware about our spiritual background. We are aware about the traditions. We are aware about Purana, Veda, philosophy, everything. Those people can alone write the history of that land, that nation. This he has mentioned in the life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western disciples, second edition. इसमें ये आपको देखने को मिलता है. So how our nation's history has been maligned and distorted. This we have to see closely. We have to analyze closely. Still, we are believing that the Britishers have taught us how to write the history. Those people who are saying that were not aware about Kalhana, who wrote Raja Tarangadi. They were not aware about those people who wrote our itihasas. Our history is itihasa. It is not just a lies which the English concept about history itself that has been put very clearly by Napoleon, that it's a bunch of lies which forced us to believe, or we all are coming to one point that we are believing those lies. So the very basis, the very premise of their history is lie constructions, lie, the construct of lies. But we are saying that thus happened. Itihasa means thus happened. So they were not aware about those facts. Still, they are believing that James Mill is the father of historiography of Bharat. They are still believing that James Mill has wrote the Bharat's history in a scientific manner and the most professional manner. But what was the real intent behind James Mill to write our history? He was saying in the preface itself, he's saying that I am writing a critical history of Bharat. Of course, it is needed. Critical history is needed. It is in a critical manner the history is to be written, but it should be comprehensive criticism. It must be an integral criticism, wholesome, not criticizing some practices of some religion only. But James Mill was criticizing in his history of British India only about Bharat's so-called practices and our belief system and only. So it is not a pure critical history. And again, he is claiming in his preface that he is writing an objective history. It was not an objective history, because he in his preface itself was claiming that, saying that a duly qualified man can obtain more knowledge of India in 1 year in his closet in England than he could obtain during the course of the longest life by the use of the eyes and ears in India. It is very easy for a duly qualified Englishman to learn about Bharat fully. Within 1 year, there is not much about Bharat to learn. Can you just believe? One darshana, if it is to be correctly, clearly studied, the so-called duly qualified man must take 2 or 3 janmas to study one darshana. How many darshanas are there? How many itihasas are there? How many thought systems are here? But James Mill was belittling our great tradition by saying that one Englishman duly qualified can learn about Bharat within 1 year sitting before the closet in England, in his house. Is it true? No. But he is saying in that itself, he was saying that the book begins with a preface in which Mill tries to make a virtue of having never visited India and of knowing none of its native languages. To him, these are the guarantees of his objectivity, and he boldly claims so. Bharat mein aaya nahi hai, Bharatiya bhasha malum nahi hai. This is the way in which they have tried to create the history. Were there no great nationalist historians at that point of time? Yes, in plenty. In plenty. There are a lot of nationalist historians. I would mention 1 or 2 names which it has been clearly discussed in your this speech series, especially Sandeep Balakrishna type of persons have wrote a lot about that, R.C. Majumdar, Jadunath Sarkar and all. But what happened to R.C. Majumdar and his history? What happened to Jadunath Sarkar, who wrote and researched in depth about the medieval period, who wrote about Aurangzeb, his fanatism? What happened to them? R.C. Majumdar was replaced by a bureaucrat who was in Tehran as ambassador, Comrade Tarachand, by Jawaharlal Nehru. First of all, R.C. Majumdar was given the responsibility to write the HFMI, the History of Freedom Movement in India. But he was removed. He was not allowed to finish that work. In his place, Tarachand was brought. From where? It is very significant. He was there in Tehran as ambassador for 4 or 5 years. He was a bureaucrat. Maybe in his preliminary college days, he must have learned some history. But he was brought, and the true original writing of R.C. Majumdar was converted into just repeating what which James Mill and other people, other English people tried to impose on us. Just changing a comma into full stop, or a full stop into semicolon, or a semicolon into a colon, and the color of the book has been changed and it has been placed before us. The same thing has happened to Jadunath Sarkar. Jadunath Ji was a bit senior to R.C. Majumdar. He researched about the medieval period and he wrote a lot. But these political leaders were aware about the danger which Jadunath Sarkar, through Jadunath Sarkar, is going to happen. So in order to change, or in order to, replace Jadunath Sarkar, one person was brought from England, where in which he was a professor there, Muhammad Habib. He was brought in. Who is Muhammad Habib? To know him clearly, you may know his son, Irfan Habib's father. He started writing about the medieval history, through which they are trying to, place before us a new fact that there was no attacks by Muslims in Bharat. There was no forceful conversion happened in Bharat. Almost all Mughal emperors, especially Aurangzeb, were secular to the core. Secular to the core. So these type of narratives were being made, and such a medieval history is still taught in our colleges and educational institutions. In this way, just I am putting before you such a small example, only that. So such great nationalist historians were there, but they were removed from the mainstream history writing arena in a planned manner, in a vicious manner. Actually, our great independence struggle, I have already said, it is to be studied in a proper way, proper perspective. For that, before ending my speech, I would like to quote Maharishi Aurobindo. Aurobindo made an important speech in that the title of the speech was Awakening Soul of India. Awakening Soul of India. It is available. In which he was saying, let me quote, the task we set before ourselves is not mechanical, but moral and spiritual. The task means independence struggle. He was speaking before the youngsters who are ready to fight for this great nation. The task we set before ourselves is not mechanical, but moral and spiritual. We aim not at the alteration of a form of government, but at the building of the very nation itself. Of that task, politics may be a part, but only a part. We shall devote ourselves not to politics alone, nor to social questions alone, not to theology or philosophy or literature or science by themselves, but we include all these in one entity, which we believe to be all important, the dharma, the national religion, which we also believe to be universal. There is a mighty law of life, a great principle of human evolution, a body of spiritual knowledge and experience, of which India has always been destined to be guardian, exemplar, and missionary. This is the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion. Under the stress of alien impacts, she has largely lost hold not of the structure of the Dharma, but of its living reality. For the religion of India is nothing if it is not lived. It has to be applied not only to life, but to the whole of life. Its spirit has to enter into and mold our society, our politics, our literature, our science, our individual character, affections, and aspirations. See, the very spirit of selfhood, which we are discussing today, it has been very well defined by Maharishi Aurobindo, the greatest thinker, philosopher of our modern times, the great revolutionary, the great yogi. He has defined it in this way, that it has to be applied not only to life, but to the whole of life. Its spirit has to enter into and mold our society, our politics, our literature, our science, our individual character, affections, and aspirations. So that was the work which has been made by, which has been formulated by our great leaders, and they have tried to allow this spirit to enter into all phases of our great nation. In this way, we have resisted Britishers, we have resisted Dutch, we have resisted the Portuguese, we have resisted the French in all aspects. All this independence struggle was inspired in a way by the bhakti movement of this great nation, happened in the 15th and the 16th century. It was the actual platform which has been made to, which has been created by the great saints like Narsi Mehta, Guru Nanak, Shankaradeva, Puntanam, and all those great spiritual figures laid the platform for our jump forward. And in all areas, we have what you say, I have already said, in all areas, in science, in art. See, in science, there is P.C. Roy and Jagdish Chandra Bose. They must not have participated in the actual processions or satyagrahas, but they, through their laboratories and through their teachings, they supported the independence struggle. So the soul factor or the selfhood has been manifested in their findings. That's why Acharya P.C. Roy wrote about the Hindu chemistry. That's why Jagdish Chandra Bosu, when he was talking about the true Indian science, he quoted the rishis and the acharyas and our Vedas and our principles and customs, through which they also tried to resist the British people through that way. And also in film, Dadasaheb Phalke, when he made the first film, what was the real inspiration behind the great father of Indian film? He was thinking about seeing Sri Krishna and our principles on the silver screen, on the screen, when he was watching Jesus Christ's life on in a cinema theater he was thinking that what will happen, how great it would be, the great inspiration the citizens of this great nation will imbibe through that film. That's why he made Harishchandra. That's why he made Kaliya Mardana. That is why he made the Kuchela, and all those films were made on that background. So whatever it may, science, industry. Why Tata began the industries here? It was a resistance movement. It was a resistance movement. What about Nandalal Bose and Abanindranath Tagore? When they started this school of arts, Bengal School of Arts, they were trying to resurrect, they are trying to rebuild, reconstruct the true Indian art, which were destroyed by the Mughal period and the English period or the colonial period. So in every aspect, in every area, the soul was manifested. For the battle was for the soul or the selfhood to resurrect or restart or reconstruct that civilizational content in our each and every phase of our life. That's it. So we have to analyze our whole independence struggle, which was a landmark one, which was a long, why we are saying it was a landmark agitation? It was a long one. It was a pan-Indian one. It was a pan-social one. It was inspired by the soul. Every section of the people have participated in it. When the English people were discussing or debating about the women's position in the society, whether women can be considered as a human being, the English people and the Christian world were discussing about that. Our women leaders, Akkama Rani or Velu Nachiyar, they were fighting against these Englishmen on the war field for this great soul, this great selfhood of this great nation. In this way, we have to analyze it, and also we have to reconstruct those history, and also we have to collect the details about those great leaders. And the true picture and the true face of this cruel nature of the colonialists to be put before the public, put before the whole world. That's also a necessity. They are saying after the Queen's proclamation of 1858, they are claiming that they are considering the Indian citizen in par with the English citizens. They are saying they are law-abiding. They were saying that peace-loving people, magnanimous in every sense, benevolent in every sense. What were they? Were they benevolent? Were they peace-loving? Were they law-abiding citizens? Whether they have considered as citizens at par with the English citizens? No, never. The cruelest colonial masters killed brutally hundreds, thousands, and crores of our people. Crores of people. They were saying, are you talking about Jallianwala Bagh? No. There are n number of Jallianwala Baghs happened in here. There are famine after famine happened here. Crores were put to death by starving them. Their agriculture has been stolen away from their hands. So all these factors are to be put before. It is not just to criticize anyone. We have to, reclaim the lost esteem, our own abhimana, our garva. It's necessary. When they are claiming that they are law-abiding, we have to prove that no, it was not so. As far as we are concerned, we were being discriminated, we were cruelly beaten up, we were suppressed, crores and crores were put to death by starving. So these all stories, the real stories, the unsung heroes and heroines are to be taken from oblivion back to the light of this modern days. That's the main work we people have to do. Just to Swami, remember what Swami Vivekananda has said. Now, after more than 100 years, Swami Vivekananda is again talking to us. It is our God-given divine duty to reconstruct, rewrite our true history. Let us start, I would like to say. We have got a great responsibility. Right from the pre-Vedic period, our real history is to be written. Let me say, right from the prehistoric period. But this is an opportunity to write at least the 500 years history. Remember the 500 years history, the saga of sacrifice, saga of dedication. Just as I have said in the beginning, we have to remember always, each and every moment when we are taking the air inside, the living, the what you say, we have to think about with all gratitude those great leaders, great heroes and heroines who shed their not only blood, their very life for us. It is very well dissolved in this air, in our surroundings. You have to remember that. That's all which I have to put before you. Namaskar. Vande Mataram.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful erudition. मेरे तो रोंगटे खड़े हो गए. It was so nice. I just was sailing through, rewriting history in my mind. Thank you so much, Nandakumar Ji. It was really nice listening to how the history of India has to be rewritten, which is also the very essence of Disha Bharat, to instill patriotism and Bharatiyatva in every Bharatiya. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving ahead, sir, we have a question. May I pose the question?
Okay. Welcome.
The question is, when today's youth read about the glorious past of Bharat, they read through the lens of the experience of the modern times. To truly understand our past in the right sense and in the right spirit, what needs to be the preparation for our youth of today?
See, first and foremost thing which we have to do is voluntarily we have to decolonize our minds. That's the first and foremost thing. See, when we are saying that through the modern days lens, I couldn't understand it fully, but whatever it may, but it shall not be a colonial lens. There are so many history books which are being sidelined that I have already mentioned. If you want to learn the true history of our great nation, you have to start from the great historian R.C. Majumdar himself. I would like to suggest all who are participating here to go through that 11 chapters, 11 volumes of R.C. Majumdar. Then you can depend upon Jadunath Sarkar. They are all truly the professional historians themselves. All those great qualification required for a professional historian. When we are talking about Veera Savarkar or someone else, or even H.V. Seshadri's tragic story of partition, those people will ask, those people who are criticizing us will ask that, what are the credentials of these great people, this Savarkar and Seshadri and all? They are not historians. Okay, let us put those books for a time being. Let us start from Jadunath Sarkar. Let us start from R.C. Majumdar. Let us start from Sardar K.M. Panikkar. So they were the people who approached the real history of this great nation through a purely decolonized mindset or lenses. So the first and the foremost preparation which you have to make is forcefully, voluntarily, you have to try to cleanse your mind. Cleanse your mind. Mind means decolonize karna padega. Otherwise, it is impossible to understand these things. Let me say why it is so. See, the other day, it was the anniversary day of the great victory of Kolachal War. Kolachal War happened in 1741, July 31st. It was, Kerala was attacked. That means the peninsula of Bharat was attacked by Dutch people. You may be knowing that the Dutch were the mightiest naval forces at that point of time. You may be knowing that after 2 wars against the English, the Anglo-Dutch War, in which Dutch was victorious in the beginning. Later on, they failed. Okay, they were defeated. That's another thing. This Dutch people tried to conquer Travancore with all the most modern weaponry and their mightiest, fleets. They started attacking Travancore. and occupied Kolachal court. Kolachal is a place near to Kanyakumari. You may be very well aware about the map of Bharat and the significance and the strategic positioning of Kanyakumari and this Kolachal. Martanda Varma fought against it very strategically, intelligently, using even the natural phenomena like monsoon as a soldier for him. So he waited for monsoon to come. Dutch people, though they may be very great international masters of naval might, but they are not aware about the southern sea, in which three seas were joining, and during monsoon, what will happen to the ocean there? That is, Martanda Varma and his Prime Minister Ramayan Dalava, they were well aware about that fact, and they waited cautiously for that, and that's why they make use of monsoon weather also in fighting against Dutch. And Martanda Varma convincingly won in that manner. You may be surprised to know that in that way, Travancore was considered to be the first Asian force to defeat a colonial European power convincingly. 100% victory. 100%. Why I'm saying? Just an example I would like to give. See, in after Second World War, the Allied forces won. Britain won. But actually, what happened afterwards? That victory? Britain was actually defeated. Though they fought and won in the battle, but social level, economically, they failed. But that was not the case of Travancore after 1741. After 1741, Travancore came into the picture, the whole world, international picture, and the Travancore became the richest Riyasat kingdom. Not only in South India, you may be knowing the wealth which has been surrendered before the Padmanabha Swami itself is still the richest temple it is. More than 5 lakh crore or something. Many of the part has not been identified even now. So that's the thing. So this is a convincing victory. Just a convincing victory. But I just discussed this matter with a great person who was very much related to Netherlands or Dutch, to collect some details from Netherlands archives. So what happened, do you know? That gentleman was saying that, Nandakumar, what is this great thing to talk about this Kolachal war? There is nothing of that type of a war. It was not a war at all. That was his reply. I don't want to go much deep into that. My point is that this particular person who was educated through this Anglican educational system, the colonial mindset, they are all thinking that Plassey war was great. Plassey war. Sirajuddaula was an icon of Indian independence struggle, but they are not ready to accept the Hindu Raja Martanda Varma as the icon of our independence struggle, who defeated Dutch convincingly, completely, and the Dutch faced the defeat, the complete disaster afterwards. That's why Sardar K. M. Panikkar said that it was the beginning of the end of the Dutch Empire. So the mindset which I have suggested to that as an answer to that question, you have to cleanse your mind first of all, clean it. And then only you can go deep into the true history of this great nation. That's the first requirement. Then try to find out the true historians. I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting and or imposing or insisting that you should read this only. With a critical mindset and objective mindset, you please go through all histories, but try to find out it, why it has happened, and through which you can attain the real knowledge. And you have to create a true mindset. See, Dharampalji has created a true mindset, or in a way, a structure for us to think. Broad outlines he have made. Bharatiya Chitta Mana Aur Kal. That book is to be followed. So the broad structure is being made first of all. Then you can go through the real history, and you can also create some hidden history, rewrite it and instill that great spirit of patriotism among our public.
Thank you very much, Ji. That answered the question not only in its highlight points, but in detail, what has to be picked up by the youth and all the viewers who have joined us today, this evening. Thank you very much, Nandakumar Ji, for sparing time from your busy schedule and giving us a very thorough and a detailed description of how to cleanse our mind and rewrite the history of the Indian glory and the struggle and continue to be a Bharatiya. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Manvita ji, for these great words. Namaskar.
Namaste.
Namaste ji.
And with this, we come to the end of today's program. But today's program is the fourth in the series, and we shall soon come back to you, to the viewers, with the program for tomorrow. Tomorrow is...
Let me show the so-called book which you have mentioned. Oh, sorry, you started sharing. This
Yes,
is the
Ji.
book. Okay. Thank
Swaraj.
you. So this is only a handbook book, not to be considered as a pakka historical research. And yes, research has been made, but it is handbook for our people, those who are participating. These type of people have to go through it. It's only a framework for that. A new book, a more comprehensive book, will come out within 1 month. Okay.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Swaraj 75 is the struggle to maintain the continuity of who we are as Bharatiya. I do urge
Exactly.
everybody to read the book. Thank you again, Nandakumar Ji. Thank you very much. And I thank all the audience who have joined us on behalf of Disha Bharat and every visionary and every nationalist who have joined us this evening from across the world, across the globe. Thank you very much. Before I say my namaskaras, let me also tell you about what we have planned from Disha for tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., we have a students program, which will be on My Bharat and the Bharat campaign that happens every day. And tomorrow here is the list. We are having patriotic songs and the story by about Gopala Krishna Gokhale, speech on Jai Ho, speech on Jallianwala Bagh massacre, poetry, tribute to all the warriors. The story by about Gopala Krishna Gokhale, speech on Jai Ho, speech on Jai, dancing tribute to Bharat Mata, and Indian freedom struggle by a Disha volunteer. Later on in the day, in the evening, we have the 5th series of talk by the think tanks of Bharat. And on the 5th day, which is the 5th of August, on the Thursday at 6 p.m. same time, we have our speaker, Dr. Rohinakshu Sriralu, who will be addressing the audience on the social reforms in the 19th and the 20th century in Bharat. We also, from Disha Bharat, we call for everyone to participate in this amazing drama on the legendary revolutionary Bhagat Singh, who has been an inspiration for the freedom struggle. There is a small drama, a very nice drama, which is organized by Disha Bharat and brought to you by Dr. Jagdish Shastri and team. Please do share this with all of your friends and your contacts so that they get the benefit of reliving the days of Bhagat Singh through this drama. Thank you very much. This is on the 14th of August, on the eve of the Independence Day. And with this, I conclude, but before we leave, there's one thing that I need to do. Actually, two things. One is I need to thank News 13 and ABVP for cross-posting the Disha Bharat programs on their platform and supporting My Bharat campaign. Thank you very much. And thank you once again, Nandakumar ji, for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Let me add a small point. Sorry, Anita. Janam TV of Kerala has also cross, what you say?
Thank you, Janam TV from Kerala, for cross-posting Disha Bharat's program on your platform. Thank you very much. And thank you for mentioning it to us, Nandakumar ji. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bharat Mata ki Jai.